I'm Rhiannon Jones in the GB newsroom. The Foreign Office has confirmed 2 Brits are among 4 people killed after 2 helicopters collided mid-air in the Australian state of Queensland. 3 others were critically injured in the collision that took place near the SeaWorld theme park at around 2 p.m. local time. Queensland Police says initial information suggests one of the helicopters had been taking off and the other had been landing when they collided. The first Channel migrants of the new year arrived at Dover Harbour today. GB News can reveal that dozens of young men were picked up from a small boat around 9 miles off the Kent coast. It's understood there were more than 40 people on board. It comes as UK and French authorities start patrolling beaches together for the first time in a bid to stop migrants from making the crossing. Health bosses are calling for the government to declare a major incident within the NHS over mounting pressure on the service. The Royal College of Emergency Medicine claims as many as 500 people could be dying each week because of delays to critical care. The government says it recognises the pressure faced by the NHS. Lisa King told GB News her husband would have survived if he'd been treated in time.
500 people a week dying in NHS hospitals because they were denied the treatment and appointments that they needed. What my husband died from was very treatable. He did not need to die. He should never have died. And for every one of those 500 a week that are dying, there is a family behind them. There is a husband, a wife, a partner, a son, a daughter.
Thousands of rail passengers will face yet more travel disruption this week. Members of the RMT and 14 train operators will stage 2 48-hour walkouts from Tuesday and Friday. ASLEF drivers will strike on Thursday. It's in an ongoing dispute over pay and working conditions. More than 100 national highway workers in England will also stage a 48-hour strike from tomorrow. And thousands of mourners are paying their respects to Pelé at the grounds of his former football club, Santos. The Brazilian football legend died last Thursday. He was undergoing treatment for colon cancer. The 3-time World Cup winner died aged 82. The procession will continue through the streets of his hometown tomorrow, followed by a private family burial. TV, online and DAB+ radio, this is GB News. Now it's time for Headliners.
Hello and welcome to Headliners. I'm Simon Evans and tonight we'll be taking a look at Tuesday's headlines. Tonight I'm joined by 2 staggering archetypes of modern masculinity, Leo the Paisley Prince Curse and Nick the Big Dog Dixon. That's a reference to your clothing. I have no idea why you got your nickname, Nick. I'm not sure I want to know. Let's take a look at tomorrow's front pages. First of all, we start with the Daily Mail, as is traditional on this channel. And Harry, I'd like my father and brother back. The bad news from Martina Navratilova that she's fighting not 1 but 2 cancers. Tuesday's Telegraph also has Prince Harry, I want my father and brother back. And he has an appropriately rueful expression there. Also, farewell to the world's greatest footballer. Tuesday's Eye has the NHS facing 3 months of turmoil. The Guardian also leads with the intolerable NHS crisis, which will last until Easter, we're told. And indeed, health leaders are warned, and there is Martina Navratilova again with a health crisis of her own. Tuesday's Financial Times, UK recession will be deepest and longest, say economists. I don't know whether that means in Europe or in Britain's history, but it's not good news either way. Tuesday's Mirror, future of NHS is on a knife edge, illustrated with an ECG graph there. And Prince Harry again featured Tuesday's Times. Millions will shun trains forever. They are losing the habit of being able to rely on the service, obviously, and picture once again Prince Harry. Monday Star, latest health advice is bonkers. Pine dining. Yes, well, we may get a chance to dig into that, but those were your front pages. So let us start with the Times front page, Leo. Millions will shun trains forever.
Yes, the government has warned unions that they're putting themselves out of a job because nobody's going to go by train after all this hassle. So they're doing more strikes on the on the train network this week. 16 million journeys could be affected, with 80,000 trains cancelled. This is going to have a huge impact on people, going to have a huge impact on hospitality and the wider economy.
60 million journeys?
16 million.
Wow.
They're individual passenger journeys, so 80,000 trains. But yeah, even when the trains are running, it's still a horrible experience, and nobody wants to do it anyway. So I think people will find alternative ways of transport and stick to them rather than coming back to trains. I mean, the expense of... I went to Leicester by train. It was like just over an hour. A return ticket was 110 quid, and the train was empty, obviously, because it's 110 quid. Who's going to... I mean, you could drive there for 30 quid.
And you had to go to Leicester as well, so at the end of it, that's all you get.
No, nobody's doing it because they want it.
They try to create cost structures on the trains which encourage people to book early. If you go online, you get very much better prices. But, of course, that isn't always possible, and consequently, they sort of punish people who do book on the day, and you just get fed up with it.
And also, buying a ticket online is like doing a mortgage application. It's insane. The amount of options on the ticket is like, do you want a first, do you want a single, do you want a standard, do you want a return, do you want a peak, do you want an off-peak, do you want a super off-peak, do you want a super off-peak midweek, do you want a super off-peak midweek, advanced, super saver, anytime, family and friends, senior saver? I don't know. I just want to go to Leicester. I don't even want to go to Leicester. Like you said, it's rubbish. I would drive there, but I'm worried about my car getting nicked.
There's one I use called Trainline, which combines all the different services, but all the services themselves seem to be hostile to Trainline. So if you go on Trainline and you go, my only priority is to frontward-facing. I just like to be forward-facing. I feel a bit sick if I'm travelling backwards.
Yeah.
Every single time I book that on Trainline, it turns it around.
Backwards, just to mess with you.
I'm like literally the only person on the train, and I'll be forced, belted in. I do think they're going to have to do something. I saw a piece by Simon Jenkins a couple of weeks ago. Some people regard him as not the most reliable source, so I don't say this is absolutely factual. But he says we already massively overestimate the amount of journeys, the degree to which the British people rely on the trains. Apparently, he says, I think something like 6% of journeys, in fact, that's all that are taken now. Most people do rely on private motor.
Well, if you're in any area that's not a major city, you can't get by without a car, especially where I'm from in Cumbria, you'd have zero chance.
Bounce in and out of London is the only way it works.
Yeah, but we have like a bus every hour and things like that. You have to have a car. Trains are rubbish, buses are rubbish. It's impossible. And just the threat of strikes is a problem. I cancelled one thing because they said it was going to be a strike and it wasn't worth it. Then they didn't even strike. But just it's like mutually assured destruction. Just the threat is enough. But I think these strikes, people are going to get sick of the rail strike. I mean, we're going to have the military taking over everything. They've taken over the border patrol. They've taken over the fly tipping. The SAS is on fly tipping. So next it'll probably be the military. But I think people have limited sympathy because they do get paid a reasonable amount compared to some people, the nurses, for example, where people have more sympathy. And also, Mick Lynch called GBNews right-wing bigots the other day. Now, he happens to be right about everyone around this table, but that's just chance. Many of the staff are often quite nice lefties.
There is a sense. I had a bit of respect for Mick Lynch when he started out because he seemed to be quite old school, quite old left, as against the progressive left, and it was a bit of a breath of fresh air in some respects, but he has become quite militant. I do also think a lot of people think that the RMT are trying to save jobs that are simply obsolete. They are trying to get in the way of progress. And we all understand it's going to be difficult if you're in your 50s to retrain for a new job, but we cannot wait until people whose jobs are no longer needed.
And Mick Lynch is like Vladimir Putin. He thought he had this massive lever over us. Oh, I can use energy as a weapon. I can use train strikes as a weapon. Turns out we don't need you. We don't need you, man. We don't need your stupid trains. They're not even trains. They're bus replacement services most of the time.
That comparison is not going to help his view of GBNews, is it? He's like Putin.
Everyone's like Putin. At least Hitler's having a week off. Did you want to mention the Prince Harry interview at this point?
I think we're doing that in a bit.
That's going to do that later. So let's go over to the Guardian then, Nick, and what do you got on the front page?
Well, let's do more good news. Intolerable NHS crisis will last until Easter, health leaders warn. And I would say that's optimistic, because the idea the NHS is ever going to be fixed, it's not going to happen by Easter, is it? Because it's a flawed idea that doesn't work.
Well, only to the extent that people stop getting ill when it's not cold.
There's an extent, that's true to an extent. Obviously, in a macro sense, the NHS never will work. It's a bit like socialism. A real NHS has never been tried, but it's never going to work. But yes, on the short-term scale, we've got the people delaying appointments. Of course, during COVID, they didn't go in due to the fear campaign, due to lockdowns, and that's become a big problem. We've got massive pressure on services already due to immigration and many other reasons. We've got maybe the vaccine harms are coming in. I don't know what I'm allowed to say on that. The actual virus, as you said, the winter, the twindemic pandemic, as they're calling it. So if
I
all
feel
these
like
pressures...
we've got a lot of dry tinder, as they refer to it, don't you? When people who've been kept indoors and kept safe from viruses are just being knocked sideways by them.
Yeah.
And with a lot of people have complained about some really nasty...
It's what's happening in China on an extreme level. Yeah, and we've all heard, I'm sure, there's 300 to 500 people a week possibly dying due to delays in A&E, emergency care, and that's absolutely shocking, failed state type of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I think a lot of this is, I mean, if you keep people alive for long enough, they're eventually going to die. And that's what's happened. We kept people, we locked everything down, we made sure we treated everybody with kid gloves, everybody had to wear a mask, everybody got vaccinated and stuff. Eventually, people are going to die. There's no vaccine against mortality.
We flattened the curve, and now we're getting the end of that.
We're getting the curve. The curve's here.
We're still
what
on
do you
the
think was
curve.
going to happen?
Yeah, we didn't really flatten it at all, did we? We're getting... It was more like a tidal wave now, isn't it? We didn't flatten anything.
Yeah.
And not that there's anything very much to say other than to express regret and sympathy, but Martina Navratilova battling 2 cancers at the same time.
She's on Bupa, though, so she'll be all right.
She will have the very best of care, I'm no doubt about it at all, but we need her to survive. She's not only, obviously, one of the great icons of sport, we can't lose 2 in brief succession, but also she is a free-thinking, vocal spokeswoman for sex-based... gender critical
I thought you were going to say entertainment.
Sex-based tennis, no.
Right.
Well, I suppose for sex-based tennis matches, you know, she's strongly gender critical, isn't she? And she's one of the bravest voices in that. So I say brave, I don't suppose she's too big to cancel. But anyway, we wish her all the best. And Moscow admits big losses after missile hit. That's got to annoy Mick Lynch. So we go back to the Independent now, Leo, and this is, well, we've got Martina there again, and also revealed China. Arrivals can opt out of COVID tests.
That's right. So there's been some talk recently of the government introducing COVID tests for people arriving from China because they're having this explosion in COVID after they've ended
That's 3 years too late, but anyway.
Yeah, they really flattened the curve. I mean, they totally flattened it. But now, like you say, that tidal wave is arriving, and up to like 1.5 million people are expected to die in China from COVID over the next couple of months. But so they were going to mandate tests in this country. Apparently, they're saying you have to get tested before you get on the plane. And I mean, I don't trust those tests. I don't trust the tests that are done in China before people come here. Other countries are making them get tested when they arrive, on arrival, which makes more sense to me. So why are they doing it? They're saying, from the 5th, if you arrive, you're going to have to show proof of a test. But China's not the same sort of place as the UK.
No, the UK had a very bad record during the first outbreak and the second outbreak of not taking airport security seriously. I don't know whether we don't have the facilities or whether we're sort of sentimental or something.
We struggle to close our borders, don't we, when it comes to just about anything? And I had the same question. Is it to do with not wanting to upset China? And in terms of the economy, do we just have such a globalist outlook? Are we just incompetent? Why can't we close the border? The good news is, in this case, it wouldn't really work anyway, I'm sure. No. I don't think it would work at this stage. And as Leo says, we couldn't really trust these tests anyway. They come from China, who claim they've had 5,200 deaths from COVID. So,
they're not bringing in any
everything.
new variants, as far as we know, are they? So I think the point is, a part of the problem China has is that their vaccinations were not very good. I know we have issues and we all have slight concerns over here, but broadly speaking, they have massively reduced the likelihood of you dying.
There's three issues with the Chinese vaccine. Number one, it's not very good. Sinovac isn't a very effective vaccine. Number two, they don't have high uptake, not anywhere near the same as in the UK, where everybody's a sheep. And number three, the people who are taking the vaccine the least are the ones who are most at risk. So older people.
Basically, the vaccine isn't any good, and it's even worse. People aren't even taking it. It's kind of the old Woody Allen joke. His life is what is it? So
the food never go to that restaurant. The food's terrible, and the portions are really small.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So, Daily Mail. You got this one, Leo?
No, I think I'm doing this one for you.
You're doing this, Nick.
Yeah.
This is Harry again.
I was desperate to do this one because it's my friend Harry. So, Harry, I'd like my father and brother back. So that all sounds a bit Star Wars. And this is a...
And it's just the one man. It's like an old Sam Kinison Southern incest joke. Yeah.
Just one man standing there. Well, and The Sun had this interesting phrase in an explosive tell-all interview. And I thought, how many times can you tell all? Do you know what I mean? Because it's not really all if you keep doing... I suspect he only told half or at best because he keeps telling us.
Harry pays out another couple of yards of old growth.
Exactly. A tell some interview. A tell a bit more this week. Yeah. And for someone who, doesn't seem to want any of this, he's spoken to ITV and CBS 60 Minutes.
Yeah.
And now he says the leaking, the planting which is sort of a mixed plumbing and gardening metaphor. He said, I want a family, not an institution. Of course, famously, the royal family is both, and that's the whole thing you have to negotiate. It's a firm, yeah. But, you know, I sympathise, of course, he wants his father and brother back. The problem is, his actions don't really match up with his words. If you keep doing this, you're never going to get them back. If you keep smearing them on TV.
Let down the institution. I mean, even by family standards, he's been a traitor, isn't he? And we all know these sort of families. This is not only a thing that happens to royals.
Right.
You know, somebody new comes along, doesn't really get on with everyone, suggests to the spouse that they hop it.
And but it's usually not a Netflix documentary. That's the only difference.
Exactly.
And the only thing I have somewhat sympathy for is he says every time I've tried to do it privately, there have been briefings and leakings and planting of stories against me and my wife. The family motto is never complain, never explain, but it doesn't really hold. So because of all the leaks. So if that's correct, and I say if, you know, then maybe there's something in that he's tried to do it privately, if I'm being very, very generous. But really, we all know that he's been brainwashed by an evil woman.
Also, he wants loads of money.
Yeah, that's true. I wouldn't say never complain, never explain conflicts with leaks.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Never
explain the leak. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I see what you mean.
I think it all moves together. Finally, can we get some kind of sense out of the Daily Star? What are they talking about?
So the Daily Star say that we should be eating our Christmas trees instead of throwing it away. So if you make the Christmas trees part of your Christmas meal, it'll give you a vitamin C boost. It's good for the planet. Might be a bit tough on your colon. Eating wood. I mean, I don't know, but they reckon we can eat the whole thing, but it's got to be an organic tree, so not a plastic one. And
no yew berries either. They're very dangerous, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, I think this advice to eat a Christmas tree is actually quite dangerous, and it's not the standard of health advice I'm used to from the Daily Star.
Mind you, the Daily Star. Maybe that's what they're named after. Having your your 1 of 5 your 5 a day.
But that'd be the yearly Star.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm suggesting they call it very dry January. It's like, I mean, if it's a cost of living issue, isn't it, if you resorted to eating your tree.
Yeah.
And isn't this the kind of thing the WEF wants us to do, Simon? You'll eat your tree and you'll be happy.
You'll be happy. I would at least put it in a liquidizer or a juicer or something.
Yeah, I know.
I don't want to.
It reminded me of the American Indians with the buffalo. It's like you can eat every part of it. You can use every part of the tree.
Except the squeak. That's it. There's no squeak, is there? That's it for part one. Join us after the break for China in crisis, the NHS in crisis, the global economy, you guessed it, is in crisis. But it's not all bad news. You could be married to Meghan Markle, and you're not. See you in a couple of minutes.
Unless...
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you know, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
And welcome back to Headliners. I'm your host, Simon Evans. Joining me tonight, we have Headliners favourites Leo Kearse and Nick, the new Top G Dixon. There it is, that's his new nickname coming in. So let's get into Tuesday's headlines. And it looks like The Daily Mail have got a story about tyrannical policies by a tyrannical government that haven't worked out quite as planned. I'm starting to think that bat was a bad idea, Nick.
Yeah, they've gone with President Xi finally admits the mistakes of China's disastrous zero-COVID policy, which is quite something. You know, it's bad when China are admitting mistakes. I wonder when we're going to admit ours. But he said some fascinating things. He said, since COVID-19 struck, we've put the people first, which I just thought was lols. And he says, with extraordinary efforts, we've prevailed over unprecedented difficulties. I mean, you haven't, because you've got all these you've got 248 million deaths now.
Doesn't sound to me like he's admitting mistakes. I wonder if that's Daily Mail editorial.
Yeah, that wasn't really the admitting mistakes bit. He says we've now entered a new phase of COVID response where tough challenges remain. So, you know, that's perhaps the closest he got to admitting it. But yeah.
I mean, he almost sounds like Hillary Clinton or something. It's like it's
not that
rhetoric,
bad,
isn't it?
yeah, I'm not. It does sound like that, but yeah, I mean, the fact that they've only officially claimed, as I said before, 5,250 deaths versus the real figure is pretty amazing. But yeah, they're in trouble because they had this unprecedented, huge protest. So even it seems to take a lot for the Chinese people to protest, but it was so brutal the lockdown. They've eventually done something, and they proved none of this stuff works. Zero COVID lockdowns, none of it works.
And protesting,
not even in China, which has got all the equipment needed to make it work. Yeah,
protesting in China is a serious thing. You know, you get shot. The Tiananmen Square protesters got shot. And apologies to anybody watching on the internet in China. You will have a knock on the door in 3 minutes. But yeah, they got shot and killed. Whereas over here, you protest. The worst thing that's going to happen is you look bad in an Instagram selfie.
Yeah.
So, and the Independent calls you a name, calls you an anti-vaxxer.
It was interesting, wasn't it, when they had the protests in China? A lot of people who have been very critical of anti-vaxxers in this country saw them as heroes.
Absurd. The whole media praise it. Absolutely absurd.
It is. I suppose you've got to say what's going against the government is, it always takes a lot more guts in countries like that. There is some truth to that. I suppose it was, there were some people who were just enjoying the day out in London. There was a bit of a feeling. I think the thing is, in China, we do recognise, obviously it is, I think, still the world's most populous country, although India may be closing in on it.
Overtake in about a decade, I think.
Yeah, but they have a lot of people, and if they did all rise up, it could get very sticky very quickly.
If they all stamp their foot at once.
That's it. They come out with their saucepans and kill all the
That's why they have those drones saying, give up your thirst for freedom. It seems to be quite effective. That would stop me.
A thirst for freedom. I've been wondering what it was I had. Thought it was beer. The Guardian now, and there's a huge shortage of care. No, it's not me watching the Women's Euros, it's the NHS in crisis. This auto-cue man is trying to get me sacked. Go on.
Don't pretend there's an auto-cue. The British Medical Association has condemned the political choice not to tackle the intolerable pressure on the NHS. They're not saying that this is an unavoidable crisis caused by lockdown and then the build-up of people with weakened immune systems because of lockdown, and so the flu deaths and the COVID deaths and all those people in the system. They're saying it's the government's basically made a political choice. I'm not sure I agree with that. But yeah, they've hit out. He said the government's decision not to negotiate with medics is a political choice.
That's the choice, right?
Is leading to patients, leading to patients dying unnecessarily. So there's around 300 to 500 a week that they say are dying unnecessarily. But I mean, we have had, as I've said, we've had the end of lockdown. So people are coming out of lockdown. They've got weakened immune systems. More people are going to be dying. So are they just counting those people as the sort of the excess unacceptable deaths? I don't know. To me, that suggests that lockdown, which obviously the NHS was all for, was a terrible idea. But what we are having in this country as well is a two-tier system where everybody pays for the NHS, but if you can afford it, you then buy private medical treatment as well, because otherwise you're not going to be seen.
I don't know where the private medical treatment comes in on things like flu and so. I don't think it helps many old people, but it does seem to be, obviously, as I said earlier, slightly facetiously, but not entirely. If you flatten the curve, part of that is that the curve reappears later on, right? That's the whole point. It's not like you get rid of deaths.
Revenge of the curve.
You disperse them evenly across 3 years instead of having an onrush over 3 months. Well, this is part of that kickback. And it is not entirely dissimilar to the forces that have created inflation, that are seeing all sorts of distortions in the economy and so on.
Well, it's a macro problem. I mean, this idea it's a political choice. they presumably mean funding. You know, there's these accusations the Lib Dems are saying Tories never funded. This is not true. No matter how much funding you put into the NHS, it doesn't work. It's not the funding issue, and it just doesn't work, in my opinion. And it is interesting. The political choice, though, is the fact that no one can campaign on the idea that we need to change the system. Yeah. Even though it falls way behind Europe. Even though Sajid Javid has just admitted it's unsustainable when he's on the way out. Now he knows he's leaving. No one can admit it because it's not an election winner.
There are certain things in this country which seem sacrosanct. The other one is the BBC, which I think people are starting to understand now is actually going to have to confront some sort of funding issue. Yeah. Obviously, we're biased, but it's clearly, you know, it's starting to be warmed up, that. Yeah. The NHS remains untalkaboutable, and all newspapers and all commentators ever discuss is the fear that it's going to be sold to private investors in America.
And how much more money can we put into it?
But this is, but if you look at China and how China transitioned from having a centrally controlled communist economy to having basically almost privately owned capitalist...
It's a fascist economy, isn't it?
Market,
they have now.
Market economy. Yeah, they effectively do. But now they've got a market economy, and the NHS is basically doing the same thing. Now, you know, anybody that can afford it, if you really need the treatment, you're gonna pay for it. I mean, I've done it myself. I'm not rich, but you know, because I'm a comedian, I travel. Like to get treatment on the NHS, you've got to be near your GP to go and see your GP. If you're outside your hometown, you know, you can't. You've got to pay.
But the funny thing is, I think, well, I say funny, but the infuriating thing actually is that we're only ever compared to the American system. And the Americans do pay nearly double what we do into their healthcare system, and it is appalling, and it does lead to... But there are dozens of other countries which have alternative systems which never get discussed. Places like Switzerland and Sweden, and places that are quite left-wing or right-wing or successful, or, you know, or wealthy or not.
People pay more in America because people in America have got more money. Yeah. So, I mean, there's some outliers. The rich people pay a lot more.
They have a culture of, like, of just regarding health as like a luxury good, and they will pay for it almost to the, you know, to the nth degree. Anyway, Tuesday's Times now. Rishi Sunak's bonfire of the inanities may be delayed. Nick.
Yes, Lords will delay Rishi Sunak's bonfire of EU laws, which sounds a fun thing, but then you realise it actually involves reading 4,000 pieces of EU-derived laws, and you just think that is grim.
And deciding case by case on
get
rid of them.
Are we allowed light bulbs or not? And, you know, which cars can we have? And it's all in French. It sounds like a nightmare. And this is probably why it's going to have to be delayed. A senior government source, not named, says it's inevitable the government will have to abandon its plans, and it was an arbitrary deadline. Doesn't sound like politicians to have an arbitrary deadline. 3 departments are expected to extend it: the business, transport and the environment departments. And, of course, it's impossible to do anything now because people say things like this. It says there's likely to be strong opposition in the Lords, where one Liberal Democrat peer referred to the plans as a product of the ideological right. I love that. The idea that trying to, like, 7 years after Brexit, trying to get rid of some of the laws is, like, hard right evils. And Jacob Rees-Mogg has made this point. He says there's no reason to give in to the unelected Remainers in the House of Lords who have consistently wanted to thwart Brexit. And it's not unreasonable after 7 years to try and do this.
Have some sort of legislative change that would reflect the vote that took place.
It's the painfully slow Brexit.
I suppose if the Lords can hold on for another year, the Lib Dems will win power and we'll be back in.
Yes, Starmer says he's going to get rid of the House of Lords, and then, and then that wouldn't happen. But I mean, it does seem to be creating a new bureaucracy. So people, you know, we've got to pay all these consultants and lawyers to pore over these laws and see what we can get rid of. And also, it creates trade issues with the EU. If we get rid of all these laws that ensure our compliance with our trade rules, I mean, it's all pretty boring stuff. It doesn't have much to do with sovereignty. You know, to trade with another country, you've got to make sure that, you know, your chickens aren't injected with, you know, Red Bull or whatever it is. And so this is just stuff that enables you to trade. And so, yeah, I mean, I think we've just... We don't seem to be able to do anything in this country. I think cutting red tape, cutting laws can be a good thing, but in this instance, I think a lot of this is going to create more red tape.
Yeah, well, red tape is its own industry. Parkinson's law.
Well, yeah, it's 4,000 laws, and there's 25 detailed questions and multiple sub-questions. I mean, just imagine the pain of that.
Yeah.
Well, jobs for the boys. The Times next, and a huge part of the global economy could soon be in recession. And the rest of it's underwater. So... global turmoil. This is due to Brexit as well, I imagine, is it?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I mean, the IMF, the head of the International Monetary Fund, says a third of the world economy will be in recession this year. And I'm always seeing on Twitter, all these leftists are saying, you know, like you mentioned, Brexit means that we're not making any money. They seem to completely ignore the fact that we've had COVID lockdowns and the fact that the whole world is in recession.
And to be fair, it's a slightly cyclical thing. I mean, the last big one was 2008. That's quite a long time ago. The fact that we haven't really had a feel-good factor since then, I think, is a bit annoying. There was never a boom year.
And recessions are actually healthy for the economy in the long run. I mean, it's terrible at the time if you lose your job, but it means that labour can be repurposed from poorly performing businesses, unproductive businesses, to better performing
creative destruction.
So it should be a good thing. But apparently, the three big economies, the US, the EU and China, are all slowing down simultaneously.
But not Britain.
We're not one of the big ones anymore, sorry.
How come we're not mentioned?
But China's slowing down, and China used to make up, I couldn't believe this, 40% of global economic growth.
Yeah.
Wow. Which is just insane.
It had like double-digit growth for well over 10 years, didn't it? But this is from a very low base. This is the thing. If you start, this is like Stalin's Russia. Entire textbooks were written in the 50s and 60s about the Russian economic miracle. It wasn't a miracle. They just had machines for the first time.
Well, you know, but you had 2 potatoes instead of 1 potato.
Right,
oh, it's 100%
got
increase.
A peeler.
But the key point is, I don't know if you said it, for the first time in 40 years, China's growth is likely to be at or below global growth. So that's the key. So China doing worse than the globe. Because I get quite depressed that Britain's estimated to have a lower GDP per capita than Poland by 2030.
Yeah.
We now have a lower average wage than every single state in the United States. So I get very depressed. Then I look at this and go, but at least China's in trouble as well. Because normally you think China are doing well. What you actually start to realise is, the whole world's in massive trouble. And then you calm down.
I wouldn't mind moving to Poland, though, if it carries on the current trajectory.
Oh, yeah.
I think that'd be fine, you know.
We'll have people going there to do building work.
Builders, exactly, yeah. Anyway, we'll see how that pans out. That's it for part 2. In part 3, we have wage inequality, homemade medicines and catcalling. Reminds me of my days on the scaffold. Only joking. We paid someone else to do that. See you in a couple of minutes.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
There's a guy who went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Welcome back to Headliners. We kick off this section with Tuesday's Telegraph now, and it looks like hospital sponge baths are going to get a lot less sexy, Leo, is that right?
Or a lot more sexy.
Or a lot more sexy.
Depends on your predilections. But according to a letter seen by a think tank Policy Exchange, North Bristol NHS Trust, don't know if this is replicated across the trust, but it won't be able to guarantee patients will receive treatment by a clinician of the same sex if requested. So if you want, if you're having an intimate, body exam or something like that, and you request, you're a woman and you say, I want a female a female clinician doctor to a hand inside me. I've got a particularly tight vagina, and I don't think a man's fingers can get up there. Too bad you're getting Dr. Leo.
Why did I encourage?
No, but it's true. You know what I mean? It's nuts. I mean, they're
so
saying,
what they can't guarantee it would include.
Well, they're basically implying that any woman that wants a same-sex doctor examining them is a transphobic bigot, and you know, you should be fine with a
they will get a trans doctor, and that will be. They won't get a male identifying doctor.
They'll get they could get a trans doctor, but then, you know, trans doesn't really mean anything anymore. It used to mean somebody who identified and lived and looked like a woman, and now it just like me. I could be I just say I'm a woman, I self-identify, and you know, bingo, I'm a woman.
What about men who want to be only?
I don't think you can request a trans. If that's your thing, you can't be like, I want. Like, there's something.
Like a trans man.
It's not a menu.
There's something inside me, and I need a particular size of fist. And you know, it's not the NHS. Maybe they could raise money like that, but I don't know.
I think more men actually do. I mean, I've occasionally had a massage, I'll be absolutely honest, and they've said, do you mind male or female? I said, I actually prefer to have a female. I'm paying top dollar for this. I'd like there to be a little frisson.
Yeah, that was Thailand.
You can't do that in the NHS, can you? I don't
Yeah, it's a private only. So this is... Yeah, it's no fun for either sex, is it, really? No. If you want someone of the same sex, there's many reasons why you might, and obviously the extra safety issue for women. It's very depressing, and it says there are exceptions, but it doesn't say what they are, and it says they're very rare. Plus, it won't apply if you've fully transitioned anyway. So it's kind of, you know, there's nothing you can do. It's just saying, look,
it won't apply if you fully transitioned.
No, if they have. So look,
they have.
It said that the statement will be rare where the staff member has their gender recognition certificate and is fully transitioned to their preferred gender. This will not apply. So,
but it doesn't define fully transition, which legally speaking is not really a thing.
And it says that there's no requirement for clinicians to disclose their gender identity. So there's no, you know, if they tick the box in the form that they're a woman, then they're a woman, according to the NHS.
The Daily Mail now, and following the death of the Queen, yet another Smith song proves prophetic. With the Church of England's first vicar in a tutu.
Wow, it's quite obscure, but I liked it. So this is the Church of England's first non-binary vicar, and they're called Bingo. And I have to say, I didn't have this on my bingo card for 2023, Simon.
Bingo Allison. It almost feels like a name created to, like, the comic
by the League of Gentlemen or something. Yeah. So yes, exactly. So Bingo has 3 children and a wife who were apparently had a bit of a challenge with this, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
And it's sort of,
those bigots.
Yeah, I know, and it's a bit of a Schofield moment. We're supposed to celebrate this very beautiful journey, whereas really you've just destroyed your wife's life.
Yeah.
And the Daily Mail sort of buys into it, using they instead of, I would say, he throughout. So
I'm quite sure the Daily Mail is doing this to be deliberately provocative to their readership.
I think the Daily Mail are just lefty. I think they're lefty. I don't buy in this idea that he's right-wing. No, I think they're far left.
I don't think they need to try anymore. I think they just report facts now. And facts are just so...
Libs of TikTok style.
Bingo Allison is genderqueer.
Yeah, so what...
Isn't that even in itself, that's quite a... Yeah. It's like a newly minted. I'm not going to say
and it means nothing.
We've got to quickly raise the main point, which is the decline of the Church of England. I mean, Bingo has said things like, Jesus loves sparkly eyeshadow, which seems sort of deliberately provocative to me.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just part of the... And I saw a video where this Bingo person was introducing themselves and saying, like, I'm non-binary, this and that. I was thinking, why do you even need to say that, really? You know what I mean? Like, most vicars wouldn't necessarily start with... It was some sort of trans day of something, but to me it seemed deliberately provocative, and I just think it's part of the ongoing sort of ridiculous decline of the Church of England.
They say that they were inspired by a close reading of the very first few chapters of the Book of Genesis.
Yes, a radical reading.
What could they possibly have seen in that would encourage them to think?
It does say it here, actually.
It's open to interpretation.
Well, apart from anything else, that belongs to the Talmud, that sort of disquisition, doesn't it? It's not for the Church of England to discuss whether the... That's like, you know, you're going back deep into the Hebrew past. The Church of England is fundamentally concerned with the teachings of Christ.
Yeah, probably.
Not like Adam and Eve or, you know, whatever is, you know,
I think
bizarre.
The Church has got very little to do with the Bible anymore. Anybody who actually, you know, sticks fairly closely to the Bible, like GBNews' Calvin Robinson, people accuse him. They say you're unchristian. They say you're cosplaying as a vicar or a priest or whatever. Whereas this Bingo Allison.
There is a popular meme on Twitter where the people post it to somebody who's doing that, where they say, I don't believe in Jesus, but I think if I did believe in Jesus, he would definitely be pro-gay, Vickers or whatever. And if I say that to you, perhaps I can make you do what I want.
Exactly.
Even though
no, they don't care. And the other thing, you see the ideological capture. Bingo said Christianity had historically been guilty of prioritising the views of rich, white, straight, cisgender, able-bodied, neurotypical men. Those rich disciples, you know, when it all started off. It's absolutely ludicrous. I mean, what about in, like, Nigeria or Egypt? Are these rich, white men? It's just pure nonsense.
Well, there's some great... I mean, some of the world's great literature has, you know, the church kind of intersects. There's a fabulous passage early on in Moby Dick where Ishmael goes to hear a priest preaching about Jonah and the whale, you know. And it's quite clearly like a congregation full of mad, eccentric, crazed whalers, you know. It wasn't a religion for rich white men at that point. These are absolutely desperate men who will probably not return alive from the
And I've read Moby Dick, but I don't recall that bit because I read it ages before you.
Fantastic. Very early on. You should get back to it. As you can read it even in an attempt that fails, ultimately, to get through it. It's one of the bits you get to. That and him sharing a bed with Queequeg. We go to the Daily Star next, and a woman says catcalling should be taken as complimentary. Certainly not the things I call our cat, Leo. Actually, Leo, you're a cat of sorts as well, I suppose.
Lion.
Yeah.
Big lion made of stars in the sky. But yeah, OnlyFans star, Sophie Philomena. I don't know if that's a real name. But she says she loves the attention she gets from wolf whistling and articles in the Daily Star. And she takes catcalling as a compliment and thinks other women should too. Good girl. But there are plans. The government's got plans to make it illegal. They say that. I mean, I think the problem
is why it's been brought in, is it? Because it's potentially going to be outlawed.
Yeah, I'm assuming that's why the Daily Star is writing about it. But apart from an excuse to show this woman's breasts, which we don't get. This is just the text, unfortunately. But
with the emphasis on the fill.
Yeah, I think the problem with catcalling is that some men ruin it. So some men get aggressive when the woman doesn't respond, and
Can I just get clarification? Wolf whistling is that's your wolf whistle. Cat calling is verbal, is it? Is that the difference?
It's when you shout meow.
You shout meow, do you?
Yeah.
I've never done that. I was going to say, is there a thing? There's no cat thing.
I think cat calling is just
cheer up, darling.
There's also a thing, chirpsing. That's, that's a bit more diverse.
Right.
And, that's when you sort of kiss your teeth. That's
It's I like your description of sort of the golden age of wolf whistling is over. But my ex-girlfriend
Thomas, that's what nice.
When men were the worst thing a man could be was a cad or a bounder.
My ex-girlfriend said that she liked wolf whistling. Not that I was doing it at the time, but many women actually do, and this one was no different. Now some don't, but that doesn't necessarily mean it should be a crime. I mean, Dua Lipa's saying it affects your mood and people get embarrassed about how they dress, but it doesn't really make it a crime, does it? I think there's three categories. There's women that like it, there's those that don't get wolf whistling and don't like it, and then there's the ones with real integrity who don't get wolf whistle but still think you should be allowed to anyway because it's not that serious and it's part of the attack on men. The problem is, with this ongoing attack on men, you'll end up with Andrew Tate 2.0, won't you? Because the more men are pushed into a corner and criminalised for being men, the more that'll happen.
A piece for Spiked making exactly that final
there you
paragraph, that we are creating an environment in which Andrew Tates are rising naturally as a sort of counterbalance to a lot of destabilisation. I do think Ms. Philomena, from what I did see, seems to have been surgically enhanced to the point where catcalling would be...
Oh, did you look at the pictures?
Yeah, I looked her up online, and she has gone to some lengths in order to encourage...
Simon's subscribed now.
That's why you went into that little
He's paying $10 a month now, I know what
I'm not only a fan, but anyway, let's move on to the Daily Mail. And the grand old U of York, they hired 10,000 men. They were paid more than their female peers, and now they're up the creek again.
That was quite elaborate, but good, So University of York is founded on social justice and combating inequality, but pays black women 41% less than white men. And of course it doesn't, but this is the Mail being woke against Simon. But I actually went to University of York, and I have to say they're all Marxists, so I wouldn't say there's any worry of them being these horrible racist people. And it's this nonsense idea that women are paid less, or that certain races are paid less. As Jordan Peterson famously said to Cathy Newman, it's not the case. The multivariate analysis has been done.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. There's many factors.
They're not saying two equally well-qualified professors.
Of course they're not. Of course not. But they're making it. But you have to go quite deep in the article to find that, and that's actually from Birmingham. And you have to.
Why don't they have more black professors?
Well, all that's happened is. So obviously there's a much smaller percentage of the population. I mean, black people in Britain were 3% in 2011. I don't know what it is now. So all that happens is. And with diversity targets, it's impossible to have perfect diversity everywhere. And what happens is
adverts managed to do it. Adverts are now 100%. There are no white couples
the point
in adverts anymore.
Although I did see one because the bloke was a paedophile. And she was
there you go.
Oh yeah, and the Canadian one for euthanasia,
alcoholism. Yes,
euthanasia.
It's a white guy, definitely. But if it's selling something like Peloton or something,
I'm just trying to finish my point. The point is, there's criticism about diversity quotas. So of course you say, okay, we better have some people, but then they're not automatically going to be senior professors suddenly. No. So of course they're paid less, and they
make them senior.
You're right, Leo.
These things are happening, but I did look up some where they could say like for like. They said there is only one top university boss. I think they call it the dean, is it? If you run the university, and it's a woman called Baroness Minouche Shafik. And I then found another table where it gave the pay of the top chancellors, the head of the universities. She is in the top 3, and the other 2 in the top 3 were all women as well.
Yeah.
And this is the same. These are the ones that have the same job. She earns nearly £500,000 a year as the boss of the LSE, which I think is not bad at all.
Can I just make one point on that? Since you mentioned London, the fact that this is not some evil scheme is shown by the fact that London has the greatest disparity. So you'd think if it's some sort of racial...
Yeah.
So it's 2 things. One, it assumes equality of outcome is a good thing, which is not. And 2, it assumes there's some malevolent reason behind it, which there isn't.
No, and you're absolutely right about York. York is a lovely place where they're doing their best.
No, York is an incredibly racist university. And, drag your children out of there unless you want them to join the KKK. What's going to happen is now, because they're so worried about being accused of racism, anybody going for a position of seniority is going to, if they can get anybody of any sort of diverse background, they're going to grab them. And yeah, so good luck if you're a white guy in the education system.
Might be interesting to see what does happen in the next few years. The Guardian next, and people are giving themselves DIY medical treatments at home, which I cannot see the problem here. I've been making my own bathtub Viagra for years.
Yeah.
Well, I call it Viagra.
Yeah, and you don't need to drink the whole bathtub. People in the UK are turning to DIY health treatments amid a shortage of GP appointments, apparently. So almost 1 in 4 people have bought medicine online or at a pharmacy to treat their illness. I mean, this is basically what you do. I mean, you go to the pharmacist. The pharmacist is actually a very qualified person. You go to Boots and
it's an efficient system.
Any pharmacist, you're supposed to do that instead of going to the GP.
And then you Google it, obviously.
Yeah, then you get convinced. You've got 17 different ailments, a lot of which don't even exist anymore.
The last time I went to the GP, actually not the last time was good, but the previous time she did Google it. I went in, and she put it in front of me.
You don't need to bill the taxpayer for this. I could have done this on my phone.
I could fake the signature.
Yeah. But the survey found that, as we were talking about earlier, so 1 in 6 people have had difficulty getting a doctor's appointment, and 11% of people have paid for care from a private medical service. So this is the privatisation of medical care coming in by the back door.
I tried to make notes in this article. I just ended up writing "failed state" in block capitals. I've just given up. I mean, you can't. You call the doctor, you get in an hour-long queue, then you can meet a doctor in 2 weeks over the phone, not even meet them.
Yeah.
So it's a totally failed state.
You've basically got to play the lottery at 8:30 every morning, haven't you?
Yeah.
That's the only way to get in. Anyway, that's it for part 3.
Okay.
Join us after the break for the benefits of dry January, drinking water, and how faking your own death is guaranteed to solve all your financial problems. Stay tuned. See you in a couple of minutes.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us. We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing. You see, amazing.
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
And welcome back to Headliners. Tuesday's Times now. Finally, here's a sporting tournament we can all express an expert opinion on with some confidence. It's the World Cup of Words.
Yes, Shenanigans wins World Cup of Words, and I thought that meant it was rigged, but actually it means the word Shenanigans has won the World Cup of Words.
Which is kind of appropriate.
Yeah, absolutely. It beat Codswallop. This was created by Lev Perikian, who started a Twitter poll, which became a whole competition. And there were some heated rounds, but Shenanigans got there. It beat things like kerfuffle, skullduggery, pandemonium, murmuration, cantankerous, flibberty-gibbet, and a word we probably can't say it. It sounds a bit like rollicks. So there were many words. Flounce
came fourth, didn't it? I think we can say.
I don't think we can. We can't. Well, you can, Simon. It's your job. We can't. I've been grilled by Ofcom. So Shenanigans won. My favourite. I mean, I like some of my favourites. Didn't make it. Verisimilitude. I like vicissitudes.
There's some. He said it was quite interesting. I am interested in this, and I follow Lev. He's a really interesting guy. He's a bird watcher and an orchestral.
He's a really interesting guy.
So
he's a bird watcher.
I know.
Strange sentence.
But he's very informative. He's written books and stuff, and he reads my own blog as well. I like him. Anyway, so I was quite interested from the get-go, and he was saying the multi-syllabic words like verisimilitude and flibberty-gibbet and so on did well at the beginning, and then the monosyllables started to come through, like heft and flounce.
Yeah, flounce is good.
And I like those, and then they were eased out again towards the end as it got, it's quite interesting, the ebb and flow. I was disappointed more robust Anglo-Saxon words didn't make it through, because there are some great, I don't mean swearing words, although those are good too, but, I do like a word like thumb is a good word, isn't it? Thumb is a good word. There's something about thumb.
4 people voted for increase. I mean, who's voting for increase?
Yeah. Increase
and 35 people voted for webinar. What's wrong with these people?
Well, I guess this is being done on Twitter. So this is, thumb would have been popular, I'd have thought. So everybody's using their thumb.
Anyway, I'm pleased for Shenanigans, but I think Codswallop, second place, as is often the case with these things, I think Codswallop will probably live to fight another day. Do you not?
And it's a new word as well, 1970s.
Hope in J is good.
Popularised, it said by
Hancock.
Tony Hancock. Who were the writers?
Galton and Simpson. But they said it was popular at the time, and they were just repeating it.
Fantastic writers, though. Tuesday's Telegraph next with good news for culture-shy, cretinous holidaymakers who like to booze it up in the douchiest place in the world.
Yeah. So Dubai is scrapping the high alcohol taxes to boost tourism status. This could possibly work for Scotland as well. But yeah, there's increasing competition from Gulf neighbours. Obviously, Qatar, all these other Gulf states. I think even Saudi Arabia is opening up now, and they've certainly sold liquor licences to sell booze in Saudi Arabia. I don't know if it's actually happened.
Have you played there? Have you done gigs?
Yeah.
In Dubai, not in Saudi Arabia.
It's not that hard to get a drink. I don't know. I can't remember. Dubai and Abu Dhabi, there were Irish theme pubs where you could just get a drink.
Dubai is, you can get drinks, but they're quite expensive. Last time I was there, it was, obviously I was just getting the free drinks because I'm a comedian and a cheapskate. But to buy a pint of beer was like 10 quid. And
I didn't realise
apparently
that.
20 years
Okay.
ago, everybody was, there's some old timers who were nursing their pints, saying 20 years ago it was like £1 for a beer.
Yeah.
But then, the economy starts doing better, and then the taxes go up.
I was going to say, they've got lots of money in their pockets, that's why people go there, isn't it?
I would go there now because, if I could, apart from this job, plus I did get skin cancer when I was there, but at least I'd be able to see a doctor probably, unlike here. So.
I wouldn't mind touring out there for a few weeks, getting a bit of sun as well, I agree. We move on to the Sun itself now, the newspaper. There's a story about giving up booze for a month, going in the opposite direction. My neighbour's doing dry Jan, though she hates it when he calls her that.
I love that you clarified the newspaper there, not the famous star-like...
body.
I'm a doctor. This is what happens to your body when you give up booze for dry January. So this doctor's it told us all what happens, and it's better sleep, hydration, look better, get ill less, your blood pressure goes down, you have less acid reflux, and you lose weight and all your friends.
Yeah, that's sadly true, isn't it? For a month, you don't see anyone, and they have to come over.
My new rule, I'm not doing dry January, but my new rule is I only drink on this show, and that's how I'm keeping it down. Yeah.
I'm going to do it this year, and I've got a whole routine about how miserable and sadistic it is, but I do need to actually. I've been drinking a bit too much, and also
I was going to say
I do like the way it thins you out a little bit as well, because the trouble is if you try and lose weight in the winter, you booze so much that your willpower completely dissolves by about 10 o'clock in the evening and you're in the fridge. Do you know what I mean? Booze is the first thing that has to go if you want to get anything else done.
Yeah, because you've always finished the night with a kebab if you're drinking. Yeah, it's ridiculous. But we covered a story last night. Professor David Nutt has invented a new drug that's like booze, but doesn't get you totally drunk.
We talked to him for a radio programme I made 10 years ago, and he had invented it at that time. It was ready to go, and he cannot get a licence for it, and nobody quite understands.
Yeah, because it's an illegal drug.
Anyway, I'm hoping it will somehow get some funding. I think it is big booze. It's basically trying to close it down. The old firms, they don't like it.
Yeah.
They don't like it.
Maybe Pablo Escobar can invest.
We go to the Mirror now, and we found a woman stingier than our human resources lady. When all I inquired after for some pay in lieu of holiday.
So a woman has been accused of faking her own death on social media to avoid paying back a £220 loan she took out from a friend. I respect this. I mean, commitment. She faked her own death. But then she was found after her pictures were taken from a TV show.
Did she leave the country?
Well, the thing is, this is in Indonesia, so £220 is probably a lot more money there. It's probably like a grand.
And also, faking your own death probably a lot easier.
The mistake she made, she was still posting on Twitter, even though she was dead on Facebook. That was the big...
Finally, in the Daily Mail, we've got about 20 seconds to cover this. Drinking lots of water can prolong your life, so all the reason not to do it.
Yeah, secret anti-aging. Drinking 8 glasses of water every day can prolong your life up to 15 years. The problem is you'll spend them all going for a wee. And it says it'll slash the risk of heart attacks. Not sure if that's a pun or not. But who knows? They always change their minds on water, aren't they?
Do not drink 8 glasses a day. You won't have time for anything else. That is it for tonight. Thank you very much for tuning in. I have been Simon Evans. Thank you to my panel, Leo Kearse and Nick Dixon. Shorn by the end of the show of their nicknames. Headliners will be back tomorrow evening. With Leo Kearse. Once again, Leo, you're back on tomorrow. Weird. Kerry Marks and yours truly. I will see you there. Ta-ra, sleep well, lots of water.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by 2 of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late-night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Are authorities, are communities doing all they can to combat violent crime? With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky